What's up, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And this one I want to break down what's happening with SPY, Tesla, and the overall markets. Just know that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out my Moomoo link. If you deposit $100, you're guaranteed 5 free stocks. If you deposit $1,000, you're guaranteed 15 in total, not to mention 8.1% APY on uninvested cash. The offer ends very soon, in just about 4 days from now. Anyways, let's talk about the market. So the market's very tricky, guys. We saw the market looking like it was going to dip yesterday. If you look at this candlestick on the 4 hour, I actually thought this would dip a little bit lower before we saw some buyers try to defend. But instead, what happened was we dumped. We dumped here on spot. We got bought back up. Then we dumped again, only to get bought back up again during the pre-market. We also saw a dip during the pre-market, only to get bought back up again. So it was very tricky price action. And instead of continuing lower, we're now getting bought back up. So the market is now looking bullish temporarily. I think we might attempt to push higher, but we'll see if the move lasts for now. So let's talk about some news and I'll break down more details about these charts. Just know, guys, that at 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time, we have consumer confidence, not to mention some manufacturing numbers coming out from the Richmond Fed. And then at 2 p.m., we have the FOMC minutes, but look for some volatility at 10 o'clock a.m., 30 minutes after the market opens. Please be very, very mindful of that. We'll be watching to see what that leads to, at least as time goes on. And I also want to mention that as time progresses, we also happen to have some new developments here. We have some earnings like Kohl's, Best Buy, and many others. Just to go over them, we saw Kohl's lower its annual sales forecast. Unfortunately, they now expect their net sales in the range of 7 to 8% of a decline compared to the prior forecast. That's not the best of news. They had weak guidance, and their earnings were not that strong, so the share price is down. Best Buy also cut its full year guidance. That's why the share price is down just a bit. It also missed on estimates. It expects its full year comparable sales to decline by about 2.5 to 3.5%. Not the best of news. That's why Best Buy is down. Macy's has not been able to report earnings. They actually said they had a little financial issue. So they're going to be once again prioritizing that, and they're going to wait when it comes to this earnings report. So it's a little bit delayed. Just want to make that very, very known. Besides that, the market's pretty wild. We started off with a nice pump yesterday, then we dumped back down really hard. And now today, the way it went was instead of continuing to dump, although we looked really bearish yesterday, we're getting bought back up again. So if we're getting bought back up again and the market's continuing to make these higher lows, we're going to likely attempt to push higher, but then we'll see what happens after that. Now, part of why we're seeing this volatility has to do with the soon-to-be president. He has appointed new people to his cabinet. Tom Lee has mentioned that he believes that it's not going to be affecting the market too badly. If anything, it's actually going to be more positive for it because of the fact that these new members are not going to be as stringent as previous ones, at least according to him. So that's more good news for the markets. But there was this news right here about how the tariff policies are also going to be shifting. This is what's causing more volatility, at least for the broader markets. Besides that, I didn't see anything else that was too crazy to talk about. We may see a lot more tweets from this guy, so that might cause some volatility in the market. So just keep that in mind. Besides that, let's talk about how things are looking. I just want to say that if you look at the way things are moving, we're looking more bullish, at least on SPY. So as long as we don't lose 597.5, not to mention 594, we're still favoring the upside for that 600 area. And if that breaks, we're looking for 602. I think SPY might be pushing for, very close to all-time highs right now, maybe even surpassing them. But then we could be making a move right back down because every time we hit them or get close to them, we do reject. So look, I know this is a big flip-flop, guys, and I'm sorry about that. I did think that this candlestick would turn us a little bit more bearish and try to test this EMA before we try to bounce, but instead it failed to do that, and it's actually looking more bullish now. So it made a complete U-turn during this new session. So it happens, guys. Sometimes the market's very tricky. I expect around 600 for SPY and maybe even 602 if that breaks. But then we'll see if you reject off one of those levels. There might be a little bit more upside for now, like that pump, and then we'll see if we dump afterwards. ES looks more bullish. We're looking for an attempt to get back up to about 6,040, very close to all-time highs. And we'll see if we get a rejection back down to about 59.91. If we lose 59.91, we look for 59.69, but overall look for a little pump attempt, and then we'll see if we reject or not. For Nvda, we held our 200 EMA. We're looking for a push back up for this 140 area, and we'll see if we reject between 140 and 141 to come back down. So just keep that in mind. For Bitcoin, we're on a bit of a downtrend here. We could be, approaching the 90,000 area. So keep that in mind. Bitcoin's a little bit weaker. Tesla also could be on a bit of a downtrend, but we're going to start off with a little push. So we dumped really hard yesterday, right? After all the tariff news, also all the talk involving new tax incentive laws that could be coming out in California, which may exclude Tesla. They may be excluded from tax credits in California. So there was some bad news that came out. That's why Tesla dumped. It may attempt to rebound, but then it may continue to dump later on. So just keep that in mind. That is a possibility. Unless we break these highs, if we break these highs, we will turn a lot more bullish. This would resemble like a cup and handle then. But in this case, I think we push up to about 342 and maybe 344 if that breaks. And if we don't, exceed the highs from before, it could just be it could be making, a lower high before it comes back down to fill this gap over here. So if we push and reject off either 342 or 344, we could be on our way back down to 328. And if that fails us, we have the gap to fill to 320. So watch those two main supports. We could pump and dip from there. NQ is also trying to push. We're looking for 21,000 as our potential targets. Then we'll see if we reject off that 21,000 area. I do think it's going to be pushed into the 21,000s before we see anything else. For the QQQ, we looked really bearish yesterday. We were very close to our 50 EMA, but then we got bought back up right before it. So because we got bought back up here, we're looking for essentially 510 and 512 as our targets. Very tricky price action. They might attempt to push us back up to about that 512 area as well. So look for some more upside, and we'll see if we get a rejection on the QQQ or not. We'll look for an attempt for 510 and 512. For Apple, we remain more bullish. We're looking for essentially, 234 as our potential targets. If that breaks, we're looking for 236. So I do expect a little bit more upside for the 234. So we'll see if we get a rejection or not on Apple. But give this the time it needs. For MSTR is dipping right here. We're looking for essentially 377 as our support. If that fails us, we're looking for a dip all the way down towards 350. So watch and see what kind of support we're looking at and how this ends up reacting. For the IWM Russell 2000, we're kind of looking weaker compared to the markets. We got this rejection. We came down to fill the gap as we predicted. Then we got bought back up. We have to see if we exceed 244. If not, I do see a risk of this potentially hitting 242 and getting stopped there and returning to 239. So it looks a little bit weaker compared to the markets. AMD is looking more bullish. We're looking for 144 as our potential target. Coin is just range bound. We're looking for a test of about this low right over here, the lows from a couple of days ago at 288 could be retested. We'll see if we bounce off that. But otherwise, we're just range bound between 288 and 317, going back and forth for the time being, not really doing much. Amazon could attempt to push higher. We'll have to see if we hold above 202 or not. If we hold above this, we're looking for essentially 204. And we'll see what kind of reaction we get. Now it looks like it might try to push. So it looked like it was rejecting off our 50 EMA yesterday. That's how we closed. And then all of a sudden we get bought back up today. So we're back above 202. So that would take us, back to being bullish. So 204 could be coming. We'll see if we reject off that. Meta could be hitting 570. We'll see what kind of reaction we get from there. Microsoft could attempt to get back up to about 422.5, and then we'll see if we reject off that or not. And Google may also be on its way into like the 170 area, if not 171, and then we'll see if we get a rejection in that range. So anyways, I want to thank you all so much for listening. Please have a great rest of your day, guys. Thank you so much for your attention. I'll be back in a couple of hours for another update. The market's very tricky. Sometimes things like this happen where we look bearish one day and then the next day they just buy it back up. But the best thing we have to do is be very adaptive, and we have to just, kind of account for that all the time. I know that some people sometimes say I tend to flip flop a lot. I completely understand why you think that. Sometimes I have no choice. Sometimes the market is just dumping. If you just look at the chart, one day it's looking like it's dumping, the next day it's getting brought back up. And I'm always giving you guys these warnings about them. But the best thing to do is just watch your levels and just know that I try my best to be unbiased when doing what I do. And the market can be very tricky sometimes. So just keep that in mind. Thank you all so much for listening. Have a great rest of your day. And I'll be back once again in a couple of hours for another update. Thank you and peace out.